So in 2025, businesses crave efficiency. And I think especially with the advent of AI, we've been hearing a lot about efficiency in the news. And while efficiency is good, focusing too much on efficiency can risk making the workplace feel a little bit too transactional. Based on our past research and recognition, we know that a purely transactional workplace isn't ideal when it comes to those positive outcomes that we like to see for both employees and organizations. We also know from our research that recognition can really help the workplace feel less like a transaction. But we still have questions around that we have to ask, when it comes to the state of recognition today. If anything's characterized the workplace in the last couple of years, it's been change, right? And we're in a different place now than we were even a couple of years ago. So, what does this mean for recognition? We need to tackle the question, what does recognition look like today? And in addition, what do employees want out of their recognition experiences? Answering these questions is really going to be key to helping us understand how we leverage recognition in order to make the workplace feel less like sort of just a soulless transaction and instead a place where employees can grow, thrive, and where we see all those positive outcomes that we like to see. So we're going to get into the what employees want out of their recognition experiences question in a minute, but just to give you a sense of how things are looking right now, we found that recognition is still really important and really impactful when it comes to the employee experience. For instance, when organizations have recognition integrated into their culture, we found that it increases the odds employees will have a strong sense of connection to their organization by 5 times, that they'll feel a sense of inclusion by 11 times, and that their feelings of burnout decrease by 81%.
I really like this, Kristen, and despite the fact that I mean, obviously, OC Tanner is a recognition company, and we with the institute do a lot of research around recognition. It's still really insightful and to see this kind of data, and that it ultimately it tells us that recognition is still an important factor when it comes to achieving those really positive outcomes in the workplace.
Exactly. And while this is interesting, it doesn't necessarily tell us what employees want or what they're looking for when it comes to their recognition experiences. And having this information is really going to be key when it comes to determining what's going to make a recognition program successful, right? So, what do employees want? In our report, we found that a key thing employees are looking for out of their recognition experiences is for their experiences to be meaningful to them. So remember that we're going to keep returning to it throughout this whole webinar. But how common is this experience? In encouraging news, we did find that 61% of employees would consider their most recent recognition moment to be meaningful to them. So that's great, right? 61%. And while 61% is a decent number, I will challenge you to think about this as the flip side of that is that 39% of employees would not consider their most recent recognition moment to be particularly meaningful to them, right? So this is about a 60-40 split, indicating that, while more than half feel like there was a meaningfulness component to their recognition experience, we still have a lot of room for improvement here.
And I think this is a really important point that you bring up, and something that really stood out in the research. And yes, we'll be hearing a lot about meaningful recognition over the course of this presentation. But it is a reminder that it's not just a matter of having that transactional experience of recognition. That really, for it to have the kind of impact that individuals and organizations really want to see, that really make a difference, it needs to be meaningful. And so there's definitely opportunity for growth here.
Exactly, right. And so, all of that being said, what are we talking about when we say recognition should be meaningful or, employees are experiencing their recognition as meaningful? What does this even mean? So to answer this question, this is something that really came through strongly in our research, both quantitative and qualitative, when we were exploring this question of, what makes recognition meaningful, because we kept hearing this phrase, we want recognition to be meaningful. And what we've really found is in digging into what employees actually mean by this is that, to put it simply, our research definitively found that meaningful recognition is recognition that connects an employee's contributions to other humans in some way. So, for example, recognition is meaningful when employees understand, how they helped a coworker out, how they may have made a contribution that impacts their team, how their contributions at work impact their community at work more generally, their department, um, or even things like how their contributions may have helped clients, right? Employees want to know, what impact did I have ultimately on other humans? And if you think about it, even if an employee's accomplishment isn't necessarily human centric on the surface, ultimately, a lot of what people do at work has the effect or the impact of making the workplace experience better for other humans in the space, right? Coworkers, leaders, clients, other people involved in the work.
It sounds to me like at the end of the day that, employees really want to feel that their teams, leaders, and organization recognize and see them for their contributions. That connection to other humans seeing and recognizing your work is really a big part of what makes recognition meaningful.
Exactly, Daniel, right? It's the human element that makes recognition meaningful.